All right, guys, coming to you from a high cotton job here in, where are we, Will?
Town Creek, Alabama.
And we've got an F-150 Lightning on loan. Who gave us this?
So, Lone Lewis Ford out here in the Shoals, my buddy Jamie, my salesman we buy a bunch of work trucks from, brought it out just so we could do this today.
So I hear they've only made like 4,000 of these this year. This is a pretty rare thing that we get to check it out. I say we do a little review, Will, from a contractor's perspective, but I want to add this twist to the video. Does it make money or does it cost money, like my buddy Zach Detmore says? How about we give this thing a ride?
Let's do it, let's be honest.
Build Show F-150 Lightning, let's get going. Whoa, check that out.
Isn't that crazy?
That is so cool.
So Jamie, is this the extended battery one? It is, so it's the 300-mile range?
Holy cow.
Yep.
Dang, that is big in there too, isn't it? That's kind of interesting. They tell you not to put more than 400 pounds in here.
And it's 9.4 kilowatt generator, 9.6, I forget the...
Oh my gosh, 2.4 kilowatts max.
I think it's in the back too, actually.
Dang.
Yep.
That is sweet. I like it.
There's a 30 amp plug in the back too.
Is there a 30 in the back? I could power my RV off this thing. I wonder what the towing capacity on this is. 10,000
pounds.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, so I could plug in my, is that the 20 amp? Here it is, 240/30 amp. I could plug my RV in here so I could run my air conditioner while I'm running down the road in my RV.
If you have the charging system from Ford, you can actually like backfeed and power your whole house though.
That's
the whole thing at night. If it's charging and you lose power, it transitions back to your house.
Dang.
So, yeah.
And then, of course, if you have net metering, right? Am I saying the right thing? Where they meter based on time of day because it's cheaper to charge at night.
Yep.
It probably is smart to be able to know, hey, let's charge this from midnight to 4 a.m. when the rates are cheapest. And then in theory, you could also backfeed your house if you had a brownout or if you had enough of these F-150s plugged into the grid. Then if there was concerns about a brownout, let's say at 5 o'clock in July here in Alabama when everyone's running their AC in their house and the office, you could have all these F-150s backfeeding the grid.
You could.
If you had a fleet of these, if every household had a truck in the garage.
Yeah. I think talking about it like from our standpoint though, like from a contractor, from a builder, like where does it fit in, right? That's the thing, because it's like the one thing that EV trucks have struggled with is the towing capacity. Even though it can pull 10,000 pounds, it's like the range goes way down when you start pulling anything. But I think for people like you and I, just if you're not traveling the crazy distance just in your job site travels and you're working out of it, which we do constantly, or charging video gear or camera gear, or maybe it's a laser or something you're charging. And man, I mean, talk about power. I mean, if you want to hang out with your crew for the day and power the compressors and saws,
it'd make the perfect office truck, right?
Yeah.
Because you could leave this plugged into your office and charging, and then whoever needed it to run out to a job site to check on things, to have a client meeting, everybody in your team could pop in. They could also bring the pallet of zip system underlayment that came to your office, bring it out to the job, and then leave it back at the office overnight to charge.
And super so I do know it has an independent rear suspension. So I know last year, instead of a solid axle, it's independent rear. I know last year I traded trucks to an F-150 actually because I had a 3/4 ton, and when you're a builder, you also have family life too.
Yeah, that's right.
And so traveling, family life, going, we were just getting beat to death. You know, so I made the decision to go back to a half ton, and I think that what's neat about Ford's version versus like Rivian or even the Hummer electric, which I don't know if you call that a truck, but at least the Rivian
SUV, I guess.
It still looks like it. This looks like a truck.
It really does.
And that's what I don't want a spaceship. I'm a builder. I want a truck.
Check out that awesome logo with the Made in America flag and the electric EV charging logo. That's pretty sweet.
So we're actually going to get to drive this to
our
next job site.
No way!
Yeah, we'll actually get behind the wheel and feel the power. So
let's go take a drive, shall we?
Right. I think that the net metering we're talking about, like until every power provider starts doing the net metering, where from the hours of like 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. you can get from say 13 or 15 cents a kilowatt hour down to 2 cents, 3 cents, which is common like in Birmingham. I have a friend, actually a family member with a Tesla, and that's what they do. They have net metering at night, and his Tesla's programmed to only start charging at that hour.
How about that?
And so he takes advantage of the 2 cent. But it helps stabilize the grid, and that's the part that is pretty fascinating to me, is that it actually costs money for power plants to ramp up at peak times during the day, and then back down at night. So the idea is that if we get more EVs on the grid at night, it helps to stabilize it. So that's where it came from with like Alabama Power, and there's one that does it.
And in the future, you could have all these EVs plugged into the grid so that at 4 p.m. when there's a giant amount of electricity demand, they could take their full batteries and actually backfeed into the grid and act like a local power source to feed, even let's say your own house with your power hungry air conditioner, so that we could avoid a brownout if we had 30,000, 50,000, 150,000 of these trucks, even just in this state. Eventually, that is pretty interesting.
I know Ford has the system now where it can plug in. This truck can plug into your house with the right charger, and then in the middle of the night, power goes down at your house. It's just like a standby generator, like you're used to, say Generac or what's the other brand that I'm missing? Anyway.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Guardian, I think. But anyway, it would just be a standby generator essentially, where it's just a nice transition back to your truck. So that there's something to be said for that. I mean, I personally don't have a standby generator, but I have one that you can pull out and fire up and plug in.
Run a cord into the house.
Yeah, but something like this in any electric vehicle in the future that's a big deal. I feel like that's a great perk of owning an EV.
The thing that I like about these F-150s, which is really the first electric truck on the market, right, is they just look like a normal F-150. I mean, you drive an F-150 normally. Doesn't this kind of look and feel, minus the cool, Tesla screen, let's say, whatever.
The 15-inch screen.
It kind of feels to me like you wouldn't know this wasn't a gas engine truck if you didn't tell me. Yeah. And I just sat in the truck.
I mean,
it's quiet.
It's quiet. You got a little bit of course, our vent fans are on now, but it's super quiet and smooth. This one has the independent rear suspension, so it's really way smoother than my truck that I'm used to.
Instead of the solid axle, you've got the dual independent rear suspension, so that this thing's pretty. Oh, it doesn't have a collar. So this thing's pretty. I'm going to take the bumps pretty well. Probably doesn't tow as well though with that independent suspension in the rear. It's like my old Suburban.
I would think not.
That didn't tow as well as my solid axled.
I think that's been the biggest fail of trucks in general as far as EV goes when you talk about the towing of them. And that's where I think Lightning has, I guess, not failed, but been, I guess we're going to talk about the bad part as a builder or as a family guy, the towing capacity. Now, they can pull like 10,000 pounds, which is crazy strong, but the range goes down significantly. And so that's the weak point for sure of the Lightning, I feel like, is just if you're towing, say, your camper on the weekend or during the week, if you're a builder or contractor and you're towing, I don't know, a pallet of cinder blocks or whatever you might be going to get for the job, your range is going to get cut down drastically, it sounds like. So,
although interestingly, if you were camping, one nice thing about pulling a camper with this is when you get to your destination, almost all camp spots have a 50 amp plug when you get there. A 30 amp 50, or a 220 50 is what I mean to say. So you could charge this a lot faster than a 20 amp 120 plug that you might have in just some random person's garage that you were visiting.
That's a good point.
So you could, in theory, probably take this to an RV park and have a nearly empty battery with a full charge in the morning, no problem.
Yeah, no, I wonder if campgrounds charge for that. Is that an additional fee if you start charging your...
Yeah, that's a good question. They don't today, but I would see in the future maybe they might.
Yeah, I know Airbnbs are like that. So you can sort like short-term rentals by car charger availability.
Oh, is that right?
If you select it,
I didn't know that.
They'll unlock it or give you the charge or whatever for an extra like $25, $50 or whatever the fee is. Yeah. So they'll pay for that.
Let's talk fleet trucks for a minute. When I was a young builder, I was perturbed at the builder that I worked for, a production builder, because they told me what my truck allowance was, and I forget what it was, like $300, let's say, a month. But I got taxed on that, And so I bought a truck as a 21 or 22-year-old coming out of college, working for this national production builder, expecting to have a $300 payment. But then when I got taxed and realized on my first paycheck that was like $180 after tax, I was underwater on my truck payment. And so as a young builder, I said to myself, someday I'd really like to be able to have company trucks so that my employees aren't using their own personal vehicles at job sites where they're getting muddy and dirty and destroyed and just frankly putting miles for work on their personal truck. Now I actually have both today, but I've got, 6 or 7 company trucks now. What have you done, and how do you think this Lightning could fit into the fleet world for a builder?
Yeah, we started off with just buying company trucks for our employees. So my project managers and carpenters and everybody has high cotton owned work trucks. So we didn't do the allowance part. We took it on as just an expense for the company like you are now.
Yep.
But, when you look at our fuel cost every month, it's just like mind-blowing what we're spending in fuel.
Sure.
I mean, between all the diesel we're buying for 1 tons and 3/4 ton trucks, and then, but really what gets it is the guys that are just running, like going to Lowe's, going to Home Depot, going to grab one more bag of mortar for the masons.
That's right.
I feel like we burn a ton of fuel that way. So I think when the cost, now the difference is like, we can buy right now, say $30,000, 2-year-old F-150, 3-year-old F-150, whatever it might be. And, your upfront cost is say $30,000, $40,000 for a vehicle.
Yeah.
You're still buying fuel and you're getting, 17 to 20 miles per gallon. Whenever this becomes, I think the price point comes down, it's game on at that point.
At this point, these are kind of cool guy trucks that are people that want them because they're, oh man, it's got some ups, dude. It's got some power. But as far as I know, they don't have fleet vehicles out yet. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I thought I heard or read that they'd only made like 4,000 of these Lightnings this year because of the chip shortage issues. I suspect in the next 1 to 2 years, they're going to be ramping these up and selling the heck out of these.
Oh yeah, this is a 4-door Platinum edition, so it's loaded out. It has everything in it you could possibly put on a truck.
This is north of 6 figures on the sticker, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It definitely is. I think more like 115 or so. But I would assume, I don't think they've made a 2-door version yet. I'm sure that would probably be coming, I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess with the battery, though, it may not be, the length of the truck may be an issue. Oh, yeah,
that could be. They might not make the shorter bodies or whatever.
Yeah, but if they can shorten them up or even just lower the price point as a 4-door, I think at that point the fleet vehicle becomes a real possibility,
The other thing that I think would be really interesting with these EV trucks is that when you think about a fleet, the other thing is not just fuel cost and the time to fuel, although I do want to comment on that quickly. I think companies that are paying employees to drive trucks, let's say you're a service plumber, you're an HVAC tech, your company sends guys out in trucks, they're stopping to fuel, you're paying them to fuel, then they're also going inside to get a hot dog, a coffee, a water, wait in line to buy it. That fuel stop in the morning could cost 15 or 20 minutes of paid time that you're not billing to a client
for two employees.
For two employees, that's right. Yeah, because there's people in both seats probably of that truck, and if they're filling up every other day, every third day, that could be an hour or two of time a month, 2 hours, 3 hours of time a month spent paying people to fuel up, and oh, by the way, we're here anyways, let's grab something that you wouldn't have if this was charging at the office. The other thing, too, is I think the maintenance on these is going to be really light. What are you going to have to do? Change the tires after 75,000 miles?
That's true.
There's no brake change. There's no oil change. There's no timing belt. There's none of those normal 30, 60, 90 services. Yep. I bet your service on a truck like this is going to be super light and very infrequent.
I would think so. Until the battery life, that's going to be the big factor. Like, how much of the battery is going to cost? And at what point? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years?
Yeah.
And I don't think we know yet. It's still it's relatively new.
Yeah, I would say anecdotally, my in-laws have had a Lexus hybrid, and they were one of the first ones to buy one in like 2011 or something. and they recently got rid of that. That was 10 years old, and I couldn't tell any noticeable difference in the performance of that battery. Now, that was a much smaller battery, obviously. But they make a hybrid version of this truck as well that has a pretty good sized battery, and that's what my father-in-law drives today, is that F-150 hybrid with a darn big battery on that thing too.
Yep.
So I don't know, maybe if this battery even in 10 years still had 60-70% of its original life or mileage or whatever you want to call it, if you're in a fleet situation, you may not notice that, because today we're excited about having, let's say, 300 miles on this truck fully topped off. But if that was 220 in 10 years and you're charging it every night, it may not matter to you as much.
Yeah, I mean, most days of just driving during the day, like even as a builder or business owner, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably drive 80 miles a day, 60 miles a day. And that's probably a high day. I bet average is probably more like 50.
Yep.
You know, and so even the 200-mile range would be okay for my normal driving habits. It's just when you're trying to go on a little bit for the trip or you're towing, I think you'd definitely want to go, I guess, the extended battery option.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think we probably should talk about maybe the weekend life, so a little bit more. So you mentioned RVing, which is something that you guys do a lot, right?
Yeah, I tow my RV, and I think I could tow it no problem with something like this. The other cool thing about this is I could plug my RV into that 30 amp plug in the back. I could run my air conditioner running down the road. Now I'd drain the battery quicker, but that'd be sweet to get to my destination. You know, let's say if I'm going inter-Texas, I could go a couple hours down the road. I'd get there and my RV is still nice and cool.
Yep.
To camp that night in the summer.
That would be awesome.
Charge the RV and plug my camper into shore power. I'd be good to go.
Yeah, I didn't think about charging or running your air conditioner going down the road. That would be awesome.
A lot of people, I haven't done that before, but a lot of the guys that I travel with do that. They run a generator on the back of their RV, have it plugged in, and then they can run their AC so that when it's 110 out and they don't get to the campsite till, let's say, 6 p.m., they're not trying to cool down their camper from 100 degrees down to 70 to sleep at night a couple hours later.
So something that we like to do a lot too is tailgating. You know, it's college football season. It's prime time to talk about it.
I bet this would be a tailgate monster, wouldn't it?
It would be fun. I mean, you got, insane plugs everywhere. I mean, you can't, party lights, TVs, blenders, whatever it might be.
Satellite dish.
Yeah, all the things.
TV.
And you don't have to listen to a generator. Even the little Honda inverters, although they're super quiet.
Like still 50 some dB, aren't they?
Yeah, and then you're having to feed it gas, it seems like that's a constant battle there. So now you may drain the battery down on the truck, but as long as you had a charging station nearby, you could go back and forth.
Yeah.
I could see that being incredibly useful. Just to have that tailgates.
Awesome to tailgate in. I would like that a lot. I can totally see that.
Oh man.
But I think you mentioned it earlier. I can't remember if we said it on camera or not, but the big downside or the big worry on one of these is what happens if I get that phone call that my kid is sick or there's an emergency an hour away. I can't just stop at any gas station in today's world and fill up this EV. Charging stations are few and far between. The majority of the charging life in the current time frame now is going to be at your house, or maybe if you're in a major metro area, there's a supercharger somewhere that you could hit. But if you're in rural America and you got to drive an hour out of your way that you didn't expect, you may be out of charge.
Yeah, and I think that the whole anxiety of driving an electric vehicle is something you have to consider. I mean, I think it makes sense for families that have maybe a 2-car family, which is common, I guess, but I'd even want to have 2 trucks to have the ability to go either way. But to your point, I mean, driving around all day, and then like I have a sister that lives about an hour and a half from me, and if she called me, I'd be like her closest relative. I think about if she had an emergency and she needed help, I'd be the first one to go, and if I couldn't get there, that would just be really inconvenient. Until we get the superchargers, just like a random Shell station on the corner where you can just, boom, pop in. And I think that's coming. I think that there's probably some grant money coming that they're going to start building out that infrastructure. But that's when we're going to see how the grid holds up.
Yeah, that's true.
That's going to be the tricky part that I don't know how that's going to end. But yeah, that's I think the anxiety of that is probably a big negative. And that's no knock to Ford Lightning. That's just a knock to any EV vehicle in general.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with this truck necessarily, but everything to do with this category. All right, Will, we just took a 30-some mile drive in this thing?
Yep, right at it.
Pretty fun, man.
Made it to the airport.
Let's answer the question. F-150 Lightning makes money or costs money? What would you say?
I'm going to have to say it costs money.
Yeah.
It's
on
just,
Gen 1.
Yep. First round, I think we're still at the point where as a contractor like us, it's just still not quite where it has to be.
Yeah, it's a boss's truck though. It's pretty sweet, I
gotta say.
It
is an awesome,
If you're looking for
ride.
a fun truck, this is definitely it.
Yeah. At least look forward to the future of them though.
You're gonna wow your friends, but you're not gonna make money on this generation.
It's like a rocket ship too, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty
man,
fast.
The power's so cool.
But I think in the future, you're gonna make money on these.
I do too.
As we talked about earlier, kind of podcast style, that was fun.
Yep.
No maintenance. No downtime, charge at the office. I think you start adding that up and you think about this truck over 10 years on your fleet.
Yep.
You probably are thinking about a lower cost per mile at maybe a significant price point compared to your gas F-150.
Yep.
Especially if you talked about some of those prices at you mentioned your cousin or your friend was getting like 2 cents a kilowatt hour or something.
Yeah, the net metering is going to be huge, and like when that's common across the country, I think then that makes it more feasible for us to have them.
Yeah, charge this thing midnight to 4 a.m. at that kind of price point. That's super cheap to run this thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Will, so good to hang out with you, brother. I really appreciate it.
And huge shout out to Lone Lewis Ford for letting us loan this thing.
That
if you're
really kind of
anywhere close to Alabama, you need to check out Lone Lewis Ford, man. They have such a big inventory. So just really glad they're able to let us borrow this for the day.
Good stuff, man. If you're not following Will, go over to his Instagram feed, click that follow button. High Cotton Homes publishing all the time. Fantastic builder here in Muscle Shoals, Florence, a bunch of other cool places. Really fun to hang out with you today. And by the way, he and I both, along with some other contributors, are shooting videos about best practices in all kinds of construction, residential construction, custom homes. We even have an architect, Steve Basic, shooting our videos. There'll be a link in the description to our sign up for our newsletter because we've got like 13 new videos now per week over on BuildShowNetwork.com. Of which Will and his colleagues at High Cotton are shooting for us as well. So guys, hit that subscribe button. New content here in the Build Show every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on TikTok or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Build Show.